As we head into the fall, there are some things that we need to think about to ensure that we have a nice, healthy turf grass or lawn. So we've asked Dr. Dennis Martin, our Extension Turf Specialist in the Horticulture Department, to join us today and give us a few tips. Hello, Dennis.
Thank you, Steve.
Welcome back to the program.
Good to be on again.
All right. Well, Dennis, as we look at our lawn here in front of our studio garden, we see these little light-colored spots. What have we got going on here?
Okay, what we're seeing is dollar spot disease as we head into late summer, early fall, when the nighttime temperatures upper 60s, low 70s, and there's a heavy dew. We'll see increased amounts of dollar spot disease. It's caused by a fungus, and actually we can see the light gray colored fungal structures called mycelia this morning, and you can see the bleaching of the leaves, which is the actual injury the fungus causes to the grass.
Okay, it's called dollar spot because it's roughly the size of a silver dollar.
That's right, an old-fashioned silver dollar.
Okay, and you said it is a fungal disease.
That's right.
And with a lot of the fungal diseases, we see mycelia, the growth of the fungus.
That's right. In the early morning hours when the dew is heavy, that's the best time to truly confirm that you're seeing the disease, because the dew really allows the mycelia, the fungal materials, to grow and propagate across the turf. And this is an outstanding case of it you've got here.
Okay. And sometimes you guys get calls with little spider webs on the turf that are confused with the mycelia?
That's right. In the spring, someone might confuse the cottonwood seed, the cottony part of that, with dollar spot, and throughout the rest of the year when you'll see dollar spot, a lot of times folks will confuse spider webs with the fungus.
Okay. And with the dew on there, it certainly shows up in the morning as well. What are the main causes of dollar spot in the turf?
Okay, practically all the turf species, varieties will get dollar spot. They have varying amounts of resistance. One thing that's real common through the Bermuda grasses is when they get lean on nitrogen, we'll see increased amounts of the disease. Here in the garden, I know we try to run things lean so that we don't have the Bermuda running into the beds quite as much. That's an individual homeowner's decision, just how much fertilizer they'll put down. But this is a disease that you can fix, probably get 90% control just by an application of nitrogen fertilizer rather than immediately running to a fungicide.
Okay, that seems a lot easier. Just give it a little bit more fertilizer instead of the fungicides or something like that.
Right, and we do have 1.5 to at least 2 good Bermuda growing months here, so it is going to need the fertilizer, and it's certainly not going to hurt anything to fertilize the Bermuda grass.
Okay, and I just mentioned fertilizer, but in particular a nitrogen.
Nitrogen fertilizer will typically fix this. Sometimes it's from a potassium deficiency, but look at nitrogen first.
Okay. Sometimes we hear people recommend to always going into the fall to make sure you put down a 10-20-10 analysis fertilizer, and is that always a good idea?
No, it's not. We want to be good stewards of the land, and that usually involves soil testing, making sure our phosphorus and potassium are in good condition, and then after we've done that, then we want to focus principally on nitrogen. We really don't want to do like we used to in the old days and immediately run to a 3-1-2 or a 10-20-10.
Okay, so if we don't need to put that phosphorus and potassium on there, there's no use wasting our money on it.
If we've got adequate amounts in the soil already determined through soil testing, then we can trust that soil test and we can be a good environmental steward.
Okay, soil tests are very important.
Critical.
All right.
We recommend them at least once every 2 years, and if you're a new homeowner, new property owner, we recommend that folks test immediately upon their getting ownership of that property.
Okay, good idea. Let's go take a look at some cool season grass areas.
All right.
Another thing we do in our lawns in the fall is to sow seed of cool season turf grasses. And Dennis, I was wanting to ask you, why is it better to sow the seed of cool season turf grasses in the fall as opposed to in the spring?
There's a very good reason for that. Even though you can get the seed to actually germinate and grow at either time, a fall seeding is going to allow about 8 months of good growth. Even though December and January are kind of cold, there's a lot of good months of growing season for cool season grass, and it gets maturity to it before it has to go through the real hot, nasty summer. A spring seeding oftentimes fails because it only gets 2 or 3 good growing months, and then it's bang up in the upper 90s or low 100s in our Oklahoma conditions.
Okay, so it just doesn't have the time to grow a good root system to get ready for the hot weather.
That's right. not a mature root system and not enough tillering and mature crowns to make it through that summer oftentimes with the spring seeding.
Okay, so a lot better results sowing those cool season grasses in the fall. What are some examples of cool season turf grass?
We have 3 main cool season perennial grasses that we use for lawns here in Oklahoma. Those include tall fescue, and then a secondary grass would be Kentucky bluegrass, and then a third grass we see sometimes is perennial ryegrass, not to be confused with annual ryegrass.
Okay, two different plants there, annual
right.
ryegrass and perennial ryegrass.
That's right. Annual ryegrass we use mainly for just short-term soil stabilization during a construction project, but we don't rely on it for perennial turf use.
Okay. And that's why some homeowners will overseed their warm season lawns with annual rye to give a little bit of green color during the wintertime. Well, Dennis, we're standing here in the midst of a perennial ryegrass trial here at the Turf Research Center.
That's right. This is the National Turf Evaluation Program, or NTEP, perennial ryegrass trial. And although this happens to be in full sun, we take the results of this and we use this information in light shades. We typically recommend a perennial ryegrass at about maybe 10 to 20% by weight in a mix with tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass. And the fescue will be in there typically at 80% and maybe the bluegrass at 5 to 10% by weight. The reason for that 3 species mix is to increase the genetic diversity of the mix and hopefully have better disease and insect resistance than if we used 1 species alone.
Okay, so this is really something that we at the Extension Service here have been recommending for the past probably 2 or 3, 4 years. So really fairly new, where we're talking about using 3 different species of the cool season grasses in a mix.
That's right. For the last 3 years, we've strongly been pushing it. It has been available nationally for many years, but traditionally we just used tall fescue here in Oklahoma. But really, we did go out and scout lawns, and we saw that some of the national mixes of 3 species were working quite well, and so we've decided to really push the 3 species mix.
Okay, keep pushing that. And you can see here around us some of the reasons why we would want to do that, because we do have some disease problems here. And Dennis, we've got a number of different diseases that have kind of come through here.
That's right. Over the course of this summer, we've had 4 or 5 different diseases come in that have been diagnosed by the Plant and Insect Disease Diagnostic Lab. We always encourage folks to use that through their county extension office to have an actual disease diagnosed. And we've had Pythium disease, brown patch fungal disease, we've had summer patch, and then dollar spot to a certain extent, and then another minor bipolaris crown rot disease in this. So it just shows you how devastating some of these cool season grasses can have these diseases. And in terms of being a good steward, again, this is one of the reasons we recommend warm season perennial grasses in full sun and to confine the cool season grasses to the shady areas.
Okay, less irrigation we'd have to do in those areas.
That's right.
From time to time. And this really does point out that if something comes in, wipes out the fescue, the perennial ryegrass could hold on, or perhaps a mix of bluegrass could hold on as well. Now, diseases are a good reason. If we have problems with diseases in the turf and we have some berry areas caused by those, that's a good reason to reseed the cool season grasses. If we lose some areas due to drought stress or something like that, we'll have to come back and reseed in the fall. And we want to do this because the cool season grasses are a lot different than the warm season grasses in that they're not going to fill in. They're not going to have those runners or stolons or rhizomes creeping into those bare areas, because the cool season grasses are totally different.
That's right. Unfortunately, the cool season grasses that do creep just really are not adapted this far south. Tall fescue is a bunch type or clump former, perennial ryegrass is as well. Only Kentucky bluegrass has the ability to spread, but it is slow, and it's by the underground runners called rhizomes. So even though it can help in filling in, we still have to reseed, typically with that 3 species mix in late September, early October throughout most of Oklahoma.
Okay, so good idea to do that in the fall. We're seeing a little bit of nut sedge here, and we'll talk about how to control this in the spring.
That's right. It's more difficult to control in late summer, so it's preferred to be controlled in April, May, and June time period.
Well, Dennis, another thing we need to think about in the fall when it comes to turf management is the winter weed control in our lawns, warm season and cool season, I guess.
That's right. It's getting the time of year when we need to think about whether we want to put down a pre-emergent herbicide or not to stop the germination of winter annual grasses, winter annual broadleaves. Now, we can't undertake this practice on cool season lawn areas that we're going to overseed because the pre-emergent would stop the germination of the desirable cool season seed.
Don't want to do that.
That's right. So on our warm season areas such as buffalo grass, Bermuda, and zoysia grass, we may want to use a pre-emergent herbicide, and that will target your winter annual grasses such as downy brome, cheat, rescue grasses. It'll also take care of weeds such as henbit, common chickweed, and mouse-ear chickweed, and a few other species. This is typically applied about the last week of August or first week of September. Then we want to water the materials in with about a ½ inch of irrigation water, and it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for those products to be activated before they can really do their job to stop the germination of the winter annuals, which is going to start happening in September through October and November.
Okay, we start getting a cool front maybe in sometime in September, and we can go out and see those henbit seedlings starting to
That's right.
to pop up around the place. And you say it's sort of a gradual increase of the germination rate with those weeds?
That's right. Actually, if we see just a few members starting to germinate in late August, we don't get concerned about those because most of the winter annuals are going to germinate in late September, October, and November. And if our pre-emergent is put down at the time we mentioned, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, so just one application, like you said, late August?
That's right. Late August, early September. Those are going to be things that include Bayland XL, Team, Surfland, Scott's Holt or Halts. There's a number of different products that can do an outstanding job for us. Timing, rate, and watering in are absolutely critical, though, for the success of the product.
Okay, and after that application, do we need to do anything else, or will that probably take care of everything throughout the winter into spring?
That pretty much is a 90–95% control of those winter annuals. If you get a few escapes, you can come in October-November time frame with something like a Trimec or a Weed Begone to take care of winter annual broadleaves. You also can take out winter annual grasses in dormant Bermuda grass in January-February time frame with a Roundup plus Trimec application.
Okay, sort of the spraying over the top while the,
That's right.
the warm season grasses are dormant.
Completely dormant.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, well, we'll follow up on some of this information, Dennis, and we'll get our lawns taken care of and hopefully be in good shape through the winter.
Great.
Thanks for the information.
Thank you.